Hello everybody, and thank you for joining me. This is Ciara from Ciara T Designs, and today I have this beautiful white and gold Magnolia card to share with you. So let's jump right in. So to start, I am going to create my base. I did make a 5x7 card, so I have a full piece of cardstock here that I'm going to trim down to 7 by 10 inches and then score at the 5-inch mark. I had to bring in my big trimmer because the little trimmer doesn't go to that size. So this was kind of the easiest way for me to trim down my cardstock. And I am sorry, but Mist had to check out what I was doing in this card. She actually shows up a few times, funnily enough, just to make sure that we know that she's there. And you're going to see Ember pop in a little bit as well, just because why not? So I cut down a gold. I'm sorry, guys. I'm getting sick again, and I'm a little bit off. So I cut down a piece of gold cardstock as well to go as a mat, and it's about it's about 1/8 of an inch smaller than my 5x7 base. And then I also cut down a piece of HammerMill to go as my panel on top. So then here you can see I'm just going to score it at the 5-inch mark, making my 5x7 inch card. I have been using the Remanent Rub tool that Tim Holtz came out with to score my cardstock. I find that I've had less issues with any cracking with it. So I've kind of found that it's one of the easiest ways to score my cardstock. And then I'm going to bring in the Magnolia dies. So this is the HoneyBee Lovely Layers Magnolia. And I've got the 4 layers there. Here you can see Ember had to pop in. So I left this in for you guys because I know that you guys enjoy seeing my cats pop in when they do. And it is 4 layers. It is really, really easy to put together. I know some of these look really daunting, and that's a fair statement because they can be, but I do find that these are really easy to put together. Sorry guys, my phone just went off. I find that they're really easy to put together. So I cut the 4 layers of the actual flower itself out of white because I'm going to do white and gold. And then I'm going to cut the leaves and the center of the Magnolia out of that same gold cardstock I used for the layers. So I'm just going to run that through my switch, and then that's kind of how I cut it out. I did 3 of the flowers, and then I also did, I believe I did 6 leaves, but then I end up cutting 1 extra leaf in the end, just because I thought that looked better. I like it. You'll see when I'm doing my layout here in a minute why I ended up doing 1 extra leaf, but I did start with 6 leaves, and then you guys know that I like uneven numbers better, so I ended up changing my mind. But here I'm going to show you adhering it. And it is really simple because all of the layers, though they get smaller, as you can see, so you start with the largest layer and then go to the smallest layer, they line up beautifully. So there's no question as to where it goes really, because if it's not lining up with the base, then it's not in the right spot. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. I mean, you can see each layer kind of layers above the one below it, and it kind of goes in a bit of a circular motion. I don't know if I'm explaining that well, and if I'm not, I'm really sorry, but hopefully you kind of saw how it went together there as I just adhered it. And then the center has 2 pieces, 1 base and then 1 with kind of like a filler of actual texture. And it looks really pretty. And I'm going to hold it up here in 1 sec just so you can actually see the flower in all of its glory. I think that it's really pretty. I did a card a while ago with white and pink as my magnolias, and I think that turned out really pretty, and I made it a slimline. So then I brought in a embossing folder. This is Spellbinders Leafy embossing folder, and I ran it through my switch with my big plates because it is quite large. It fits more than a 5x7, as you can see, and I didn't have the right pressure, so I had to kind of ponder this a moment. And I looked at my layers and made sure that I had them correct. And then I decided to stick a piece of heavyweight cardstock. I think this is a piece of like 120 weight cardstock. It is what I use for my bases. I stuck that underneath the embossing folder on top of the base just to add a little bit because it needed a smidge more pressure, because you saw that in most of the areas the embossing was beautiful, but it just didn't quite do what I needed it to do. So I ran that through with just that bit of a shim, and then it came out beautifully. So that did kind of work. And then Mist came back to check out what I was doing, and I'm just going to adhere my layers together here. I did kind of use a mix of Nuvo Deluxe glue and my art glitter glue because I found the fine tip a lot easier to adhere the layers of flowers together, and then the leaves here in a second when I start actually putting this together on the base of the card there. Because I'm just going to adhere my layers first, and then I'm going to show you kind of what I was thinking for how I wanted the layout to look. There's no wrong way to do this, but I do find that if you're going to stick with uneven numbers, it just looks better to the eye. If you use even numbers, which you can do, I mean, people do it all the time, I find that your eye tries to make a pattern out of it instead of just enjoying it, what it is that you've created, right? So I think that this is it's just kind of how my mind works. So I do tend to stick with uneven numbers and layering things up. So you can see here, like I'm going to use the flowers first, and I kind of decided where I wanted them to go layer wise. And I do like that they stick off a little bit. I do that intentionally. You don't have to, but I like how that looks. And for me personally, I would just then create an envelope that fit it. You can trim them if you want to. That absolutely works. But I chose to I would just create an envelope that fits with the leaves hanging off a little bit. So here I thought that I was going to use 5 leaves because I've cut 6. I cut 2 of each leaf. There's 2 leaves in the die set. And then this is what layout I was going for originally. And then I decided that I really wanted to add another leaf. So I am going to end up die cutting that here in a little bit. But I'm going to I laid out how I wanted it. I'm going to adhere my leaves first. So I found the easiest way was to just kind of hold down one side with my finger and then add adhesive underneath them and then press it into the adhesive and hold it for a few seconds. So that kind of guaranteed that the leaves and the flowers were going to end up where I wanted them to. I mean, there are lots of ways to do this. You could use like press and seal and lift everything off. I just found this to be easier for me personally just because I knew how I wanted the layout to look. And they were all bigger pieces, like there was no really small pieces in this. So I found this kind of just the easiest way to do that. And I just kind of went around and just turned my card so that my pieces didn't shift, so that I didn't have to worry about needing to rearrange them. And then when I get to the center flower, I am going to pop it up with some thin 3D and foam squares. I did have to use 2 because you have to think that the flowers underneath it are 4 layers of cardstock each, right? So that's created quite a bit of bulk. Otherwise, my center flower wouldn't actually be adhered to the bottom of the card, like the card panel. And I really wanted it to actually be touching the card panel. So I tried 1 square here, and there's no way that it's touching. It's just sitting on top of the cardstock. So I'm going to adhere a second thin 3D foam square on top of the first. Now, if you had thicker foam, then you wouldn't have to worry about this. This is just what I had sitting right beside me, so this is what I chose to use. And then I did use a little bit of adhesive as well so that it would adhere to the flowers as well as the base. So then I kind of just pressed it down in the center because that's where I stuck the 3D foam. And then I turned it a little bit because it wasn't quite where I wanted it to be. And then this is where I decide that I want to bring in the extra leaves. So this is the leaf that I still have. But you know that I don't like even numbers as a general rule. You could have done it like that. It's still pretty. But I decided I kind of wanted to stick that one down there. And then I'm going to cut 1 extra one to go where I put the leaf the first time. And this is just because I decided I wanted a touch more gold to go in with this. I mean, the background is white. The flowers are white. The gold kind of is all that's what's breaking up the white on white look of this card. So I just wanted to bring in 1 more leaf to kind of help define where the flower edges were against where the background is. So I hope that kind of makes sense. And I just wanted to explain my thought process a little bit there, but I think it turned out really pretty. And then I wanted a really subtle sentiment. So I brought out the sentiment strips from Simon Says Snap, and there's just this little thanks sentiment, and that's what I'm trimming out right here. And then I'm going to gold foil it because, of course, these are laser printed. So you can foil them if you want to. And I had a little piece of gold foil in my mini Minc machine. And the easiest way I found to do this personally, especially with things so little, is that I tape it to my carrier sheet. And then that's how I make sure that it stays where I want it, but it still gets through the heat. And I do always do it twice on 5. I don't know if you can actually buy the Minc Mini anymore, but a laminator should do the same thing. I haven't personally tried with a laminator because I own the Minc Mini, but the full-size Minc works as well, obviously. This one's just smaller. I think its opening is only 6x6. But generally, the only thing that I am foiling is sentiments, so I haven't had any issues with the smaller opening. So that's kind of my thought. And then I just kind of peel it back, and you're going to see here I struggle a second to get the tape off, but it foiled beautifully, and I love how it looks. It's just like another subtle gold. And luckily the golds are very, very close to one another, so I didn't have to worry about them not looking the same. Although it's such a small amount of like words that it's not really, or letters, I guess, that it's not really a big deal. And then I chose to kind of trim the edge on an angle, and then I'm going to adhere it just underneath one of the petals on the flower and a little bit of a leaf on the lower right hand side. I do tend towards that. I think I like that look. I do tend to put my sentiments down there. It's just a preference thing, I think. There's no wrong way to do this. This is just what I kind of chose to do. And I use my reverse tweezers just because you guys know I have long nails. So when I'm doing smaller things, it's easier for me to use my my tweezers to kind of put stuff where I need it to go. And then I had to add some pearls. This isn't necessary, but I love the look. And I feel like pearls just give something an elegance. Personal preference. You don't need them. The card is beautiful without them. But me being me, I had to add some pearls. So this is how the card turned out. I am in love with it. I would love to hear what you guys think of this white and gold beautiful card. It's I don't know. It's stunning. I love white and gold cards. They're just one of my favorite things to create. But I'd love to hear what you think. Leave me a like, leave me a comment, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I do new videos every Monday and Thursday. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you again very soon. Bye-bye for now.